Hey,
Hey, welcome. This is review Lobstermagnet Review, the channel of the review. We are here. We just watched the second episode of Berserk, 2016 or 2017 or whatever you want to call it. We are longtime Berserkies, and so Greg, what?
Berserkies.
Yeah. That's my stupid Berserk fandom name. It's a terrible name. I'm going to keep on using it for now, and
Okay.
it's terrible, but I like it. Berserkies. It's it's so bad it's good, kind of. Not really.
Nah. Well, what were we gonna say?
So, what do you think of this episode?
It was good.
Got to
I didn't
see.
remember a lot of like the backstory with Farnese and Serpico.
It's actually a pretty fucking good backstory.
Yeah.
It's like a really good backstory. I think like overall, Farnsey has like a really good arc throughout the whole thing. And you sort of like get her background about how she's sort of like kind of left alone to her own devices and kind of drives herself insane and becomes a crazy woman who is wants to burn stuff down, and it kind of makes sense. And her arc of like leaving everything behind and going with Guts on his journey and what she
And
becomes.
Serpico becomes like a manservant basically.
I like
For
Serpico.
yeah,
Serpico's like the perfect like supporting character. Like
yeah,
he's interesting enough that like he has a place on the team in the journey. He's capable enough that like he's an asset, but he doesn't overshadow any of like the main people like Guts.
yeah. Uh, I can agree with that. He does have some kind of interesting side to him. There's a little bit of you know he probably has a lot of like residual anger like from being like treated like that by Farnese, but at the same
Yeah,
time he's like sort of grateful that someone
yeah.
took him in.
He's sort of grateful. He's sort of like, one second, I'm gonna turn off the whatchamacallit, air conditioner. But keep going with your thoughts. I'll be back in 2 seconds.
Yeah. So Serpico, he he was like a very poor comes from a very poor background, and he was sort of adopted by Farnese.
And then we learned that like they're actually half brother, half sister, and they have
Oh
this.
yeah.
Yeah. That's it's an important detail to pay attention to, which makes their like her like sort of incesty thing and BDSM thing even more twisted.
So it was like by chance that she found him. She
Yeah,
found her half brother.
her half brother. And like that's he sort of cares for her. Although you kind of wonder if there's like twisted like Serpico on Farnze fan art out there. I, I,
Probably. There
there has to
if
be.
you
Or
look hard enough, you'll find it. It's the internet. You can just
yeah,
find it.
it's kind of weird though. Like a super edge porn thing would be like oh yeah, they're doing it all the time. Twin incest, half brother incest. Oh yeah. But like Moira never really does that. He's just sort of this loving brother.
Yeah. Um hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a more interesting backstory than I remember it being. I mean, Farnese's backstory just by itself was interesting with you know, being so devout to the the, the
The
Crusades,
Holy See,
the Holy
the
See,
Inquisition.
and like I think she burned her own parents or something like that.
No, she didn't burn her own parents. Her parents are very much alive because they have that arc where they try and marry her off and then they introduce her family again. But they burned Serpico's parent, mom.
Right. Maybe that's what I got confused with. So
Yeah, no,
literally
Serpico.
burned Serpico's mom. That's horrifying.
Yeah, that was a good scene where they like, oh, you gotta burn your mom,
For like no good reason because,
Yeah,
she can't
she's a
even talk.
because she's
She's,
poor
she,
and destitute, and
she's she's got like so much she's ridden with so much dementia and whatever. She's like can't even speak or communicate at all. Oh, but she's a witch or something like that. We gotta burn her or whatever. It's so stupid.
yeah, exactly. I mean, fucked up times, man. Poor Serpico has to like choose his mother or his half sister, and he chooses the half sister.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't even get any incest sex out of it. No rewards. But that's what makes
He's,
him a capable guy.
I mean, they sort of came close to doing it.
Yeah, that was a nice disturbing scene. I'm glad it didn't go all the way.
But I mean, Serpico, did he realize that they were half sister before that scene or after that scene?
No, before, because when he was a child, they have the flashback when he's like 6 or whatever, and then
Okay.
the guy comes and he says, "Oh, I see you're my bastard son. Well, I don't want you to get in the way of my real son, so I can't legitimize you. Can you take care of my mom? Yeah, I'll get around to it, kid."
Yeah, eventually I'll see her. Hmm.
Hmm.
Eventually. And
Hmm.
he has
Oh,
these huge ass whiskers. You could just like imagine him doing like, yes, eventually.
yes, maybe.
um,
But it
what
was
what
definitely
else?
it was definitely a good flashback, and then we get the classic Beast of Darkness scene where Guts gets into his darker emotions, his Kyubi moment, and that was pretty well done as well.
Uh, it's interesting. Like why? Like you can't. It's hard to imagine Guts wanting to like attack Casca for any reason. But I think he sort of feels like Casca is holding him back from getting revenge from
Well, she is.
Griffith.
That's what his darker emotion is. Is that she's holding him back. She's this huge burden, and I think what Moira kind of channels into is like the sort of darker emotions people who are saddled with relatives or family members or friends who are handicapped in some capable way, some kid who's on the severe autistic spectrum. Traditionally in our world, it's you're expected to be have the high ground. Oh, it's a great pleasure to have it, and they have a soul of a poet. Blah 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 blah. Even though there is a darker emotion that most people that's kind of taboo to talk about. That oh, I just wish this person would die so I wouldn't have to deal with this bullshit.
Yeah,
This is an emotionally draining thing to take care of this handicapped person who has dementia. And even though the morally right and responsible thing is we're gonna do it to them because we're good people. There is that darker, and that's sort of what makes the scene
well,
poignant.
Casca, I don't think she has dementia. I mean, she's just like traumatized. She's
Mentally handicapped.
experienced.
Well, she is a disability. She has a very hard mental disability that makes it life very difficult for Guts.
Yeah,
And there's a whole bunch of other people have gone over this, but what makes Berserk great is not so much oh, Guts is the strongest, he kills everything, but the sort of quieter, more contemplative moments.
mm-hmm.
That's what sort of gives the series its nuance. And just him being stuck in the middle of the winter, realizing that as much as he wants to care for Casca, that it's extremely difficult and inhibiting, and especially because of their situation. It's just this horrible, terrible burden for him, and
Yeah.
he's incapable of doing it alone, which is why he gets his eventual adventuring party.
They just so happened to show up like towards the end of
Yeah,
the episode.
exactly. Just all go show up. And there's something very sweet and kind of poignant about that, and very sad when seeing Guts succumb to his inner emotions, and he's kind of horrified of himself. But
Yeah,
and those are the kind of levels that make Berserk more than just your traditional, whatever fantasy thing, your edge porn, whatever bullshit, and why
uh,
it's lasted so long, why it's resonated so well, and why it's such a great series.
yeah. It really takes a darker turn a lot of the times. Like later in the episode, the very last part, with like Casca almost getting raped again by bandits, and
Oh,
and
Casca.
then she's like reliving the moments of the eclipse,
Yeah.
and her fighting instincts taken, and she like
Slashes.
kills them all, kills them both, and
Yeah, it's
then
very,
Guts like gets like
very
weirdly
heartbreaking.
attracted by that, and like starts to kiss her as well and stuff, and shit just like shit like hits the fan really hard in terms of like their emotional breakdowns.
Yeah, Guts wants to be a strong guy, but there are lots of things that can break him down, and darker impulses that are being fed on by the machinations of the Berzerk universe.
And Guts like even almost rapes her like at the same time. It's just like so many levels of fucked up that happens in this show.
If you're triggered, you shouldn't be probably stay away from Berzerk. I like to think it's a bittersweet wine that like is all the more poignant because of its sadness.
Yeah.
Unlike, oh god, there's this terrible seinen series that's like basically a shonen series. I think it's called Akame ga Kill or something.
Akame ga Kill.
Yeah. I'd be tempted to like make you watch it just like the inverse of Berzerk, because it's technically a dark fantasy and it's about this kid who goes to the capital, but everything's so fucked up because it's run by this evil minister. So
someone was telling me that it's like it's like it's like one of those animes that's like really visually like cool looking, but like has like absolutely no interesting story whatsoever.
It's like on one end you have Berzerk, and then the other hand you have that, which basically like, oh my god, it's such a generic anime setting. It's like, there's this average McAverageton, and he's like becomes the best, and he joins this like group of fucking assassins, but they all have like cool superpowers that are basically based on this stupid plot bullshit. So there's a guy who has like super armor, and a girl who has a fucking laser beam, even though it's supposed to be like evil fantasy shit, and then stupid harem aspect where it's like, oh my god, who's gonna like him? Is it like the main girl? Is she best girl? Is it gonna be the booby big sister? Or is it gonna be the little fucking tsundere girl? Oh, I don't know.
Well,
it's dumb. It's a show that thinks it's an anime/manga that thinks it's smarter than it is, and it's like the opposite end. And it's like, oh, it's a dark fantasy, but no, it's an infantile thing. And just because it kills people off doesn't mean it's fucking mature. Bad show.
Okay. Bad show. I'll never watch it, probably.
Probably not. It's completely forgettable. Just like meant to be designed for Hot Topic and
meant to be designed for Hot Topic.
It's not good. Stupid, dumb edge porn. But Berzerk earns itself. Like, I wouldn't say the adaptation's the greatest thing in the world, but like, I'd say the strength of the Berzerk material shines through.
Yeah. It really is. It brings you in emotionally sometimes in some scenes. It's like, oh my god, this is such like a horrific thing that's happening to them, and you can really sort of, imagine like what those characters are going through at that moment. It's like, it can feel like a very cruel series a lot of the time.
Yeah,
very cruel.
Well, it's funny though. We're like in this new arc, we're about to see like things go from like being super mean to a little less mean. As like Guts gets his like little adventuring band, and nothing like super horrible happens to them, and they form this sort of like family unit.
I still think something terrible's gonna happen to them.
I feel like something bad's gonna happen to those like wizards, because there's like a lot
of those guys too. Something terrible is going to happen to the wizards.
There's a lot of them. You don't need to name them. You can have awful things happen to them. But we'll see. I don't know if he's going to like do anything like cut off Serpico's hand or anything. But I like Serpico. Serpico's like
something like Jaime Lannister in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, exactly. But it was a solid episode. So, Greg, do you have any other thoughts about this episode?
I mean, yeah, it was a fun episode. I mean, there's like some sort of heart-wrenching scenes with like guts and caskets. Like, I kind of wish bad things wouldn't happen to them, but they just keep on happening to them.
Well, as they say, as the Skull Knight says, we are all swimming against the fate of causality. The causality is like a giant stream. We are salmon just swimming against it. But Guts is like the strongest salmon.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that about does it for this. We're going to go start watching episode 3, and then we'll have a new video up soonish.
All right, see you then.
See ya, people's internets.